In 1967, a year before his death, Padre Pio revealed a simple yet powerful method to transform any home into an impenetrable spiritual fortress. He confided in Brother Albert, "Blessed oil on the door locks isn't superstition. It's a physical barrier that demons cannot cross." Have you ever felt that unsettling chill upon entering your home? That feeling that something wasn't right? That someone or something had been there in your absence? Padre Pio would say that homes are like bodies. They have entry points, and the locks are the main gates through which the forces of darkness attempt to invade our sanctuaries. In the next few minutes, you'll uncover the exact ritual Padre Pio discreetly taught families struggling with malevolent spiritual presences. You'll understand why this simple method is more powerful than any protection you've ever tried. And you'll learn how to apply this invisible barrier that transformed thousands of homes into protected sanctuaries. It was March 15th, 1966, in San Giovanni Rotondo. A desperate family had traveled over 300 miles to seek Padre Pio's help. Their 17-year-old daughter, Emily Carter, could no longer enter their home. Every time she tried, she felt an invisible force pushing her back. Her parents were desperate. Padre Pio listened silently. His eyes filled with that special glow he possessed when sensing spiritual battles. He took a small vial of oil from the lamps of the Blessed Sacrament. He blessed the oil with a Latin prayer no one fully understood. Then he gave the girl's father very specific instructions. "Place 3 drops of this oil on every lock in the house," he instructed. "Begin with the front door, always at 6 in the morning when the sun rises. Then proceed to each interior door, each window with a latch. As you apply the oil, recite 3 Hail Marys. It's not the oil that holds the power. It's the faith and the prayer that accompany the ritual." The father followed the instructions precisely as Padre Pio directed. On the first day, Emily could enter the house, but still felt a strange heaviness. On the second day, the weight lessened. On the third day, the girl smiled for the first time in 2 months. The energy of the house had completely shifted, but remember when I said Padre Pio gave specific instructions? He revealed something the Church kept discreet for decades. The blessed oil doesn't work on its own. It needs to be applied with a specific prayer he learned from an angel in 1918, the same year he received the stigmata. This prayer was never officially published. It was transmitted only verbally from Padre Pio to chosen individuals. Brother Albert, who lived with him for 15 years, confirmed this prayer was revealed during one of his bilocations. Padre Pio was simultaneously in his cell in San Giovanni Rotondo and in a home in Naples, where a family was being tormented by demonic manifestations. The prayer is simple, but carries extraordinary power because it was dictated directly by St. Michael the Archangel. Padre Pio always repeated, "When you place the blessed oil on the lock and pray these words, it's not you who is protecting the house. It's St. Michael who assumes the guardianship of that home." It was October 1967. Padre Pio was very ill, but still received people seeking spiritual guidance. Josephine Rossi, a 60-year-old woman from Bari, arrived weeping. Her house had become a living hell. Objects moved on their own. Doors slammed shut in the dead of night. The family could no longer pray inside their home. Padre Pio asked her to draw near. He whispered the exact words that should accompany the oil on the locks into her ear. "I cannot repeat the entire prayer here because it should only be pronounced in the presence of the Blessed Sacrament. But I can tell you that it includes the direct invocation of Saint Michael and a specific phrase that commands the demons to depart from that home." Josephine returned home that same day. She applied the oil as Padre Pio had taught. On the first night after the ritual, the entire family slept peacefully for the first time in 8 months. The supernatural phenomena ceased completely. The house became a home again. But here's a secret not everyone knows. The oil Padre Pio used wasn't just any blessed oil. It was oil from the lamps of the Blessed Sacrament, specifically those that remained lit during perpetual adoration. This detail is crucial because this oil absorbs the spiritual energy of the Eucharistic presence. When you don't have access to this specific oil, you can use pure olive oil, but it must be blessed by a priest during Mass. Padre Pio explained that the moment of consecration is when the oil receives the greatest power of protection. That's why he always asked his priest friends to bless the oil during the elevation of the host. It was then that the documented miracle occurred. In January 1968, 6 months before Padre Pio's death, an entire family in Foggia was being terrorized by demonic phenomena. 3 generations lived in the same house: grandparents, parents, and 5 young grandchildren. The phenomena began after they brought some antique furniture from an abandoned house. The children would wake up screaming every night. They said they saw dark figures in the hallways. The smell of sulfur filled the house between 2 and 3 in the morning. The adults began to argue for no reason. It was an oppression that was destroying the entire family. The patriarch of the family, Anthony Romano, went to San Giovanni Rotondo as a last resort. Padre Pio received him on a rainy afternoon. Before Anthony could even begin to explain the problem, Padre Pio said, "I know why you are here. Your house is being invaded because you opened a door that should have remained closed." Padre Pio explained that some objects carry negative spiritual energy, especially when they come from places where there has been suffering or occult practices. But there was a solution: the complete ritual of the blessed oil, not just on the locks, but on all entry points of the house. Anthony returned home with a vial of oil from the lamps of the Blessed Sacrament and detailed instructions. He was to apply the oil to all the locks, but also to the door thresholds, window frames, and mirrors in the house. This was the complete method that Padre Pio used in the most serious cases. On the first night after the ritual, something extraordinary happened. Eleanor Romano, Anthony's wife, woke up at 2 in the morning and saw a golden light traversing every room of the house. It wasn't an ordinary light. It had the form of a tall human presence with what appeared to be a shining sword in its hand. The children slept soundly for the first time in months. The sulphurous stench vanished completely. But what was even more striking was the rapid deterioration of the antique furniture they'd brought from the abandoned house. It was as if the negative energy it held was being physically expelled. Within 3 days, the furniture was so decayed. It had to be discarded, but the family had found peace. Anthony Romano returned to San Giovanni Rotondo to give thanks. Padre Pio smiled and said, "It wasn't the oil that banished the evil. It was Saint Michael the Archangel who took charge of your home. Remember when I mentioned this ritual was more powerful than any other protection? That's because it doesn't just function as a physical barrier. It establishes a spiritual hierarchy. When you apply the blessed oil with the correct prayer, you are formally entrusting the protection of your home to Saint Michael the Archangel." Padre Pio explained that our home is our first church. It's where our family gathers, where we pray, where we live our faith daily. Therefore, it deserves and needs specific spiritual protection. The blessed oil on the door locks creates what he called an angelic circle of protection. In February 1968, a few months before his death, Padre Pio made a stunning revelation to Brother Albert. He said that in the times to come, Catholic families would need to protect their homes more intensely. The forces of evil would attack primarily through family division and the loss of faith within homes. That's why he had received this revelation about the blessed oil. It wasn't just for extreme cases of demonic manifestations. It was for every Catholic family who wanted to keep their home a sanctuary. It was preventative protection, not just corrective. The most powerful part, which you must do exactly as Padre Pio taught, is this. The ritual must always be performed at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Friday. Why? Because it was on a Friday that Christ died on the cross, definitively conquering the power of evil. And at 6 in the morning, because it's the time of day when darkness gives way to light. You take a small vial of pure olive oil. Take it to a priest and ask for it to be blessed during Mass, preferably at the moment of consecration. If you can't get oil blessed during Mass, you can use normally blessed oil, but the effectiveness will be slightly less. On Friday morning, at 6 o'clock sharp, you begin with the main door of the house. Place 3 drops of oil on the lock. As you do this, pray 3 Hail Marys, and then this prayer that Padre Pio taught, Saint Michael the Archangel. Take charge of this house, expel all evil forces, and establish your eternal protection here. Then you go to each interior door of the house, each window that has a lock or latch, each mirror fixed to the wall, on each 3 drops of oil, and the same prayer. The entire process must be done in complete silence. Only you and the prayers. No music, television, or conversations. When you finish the ritual throughout the house, you should light a white candle before an image of St. Michael the Archangel. Let the candle burn completely while you pray a rosary. This is the finalization that seals the protection throughout the house. Padre Pio guaranteed that a house protected with this ritual becomes a place where angels like to dwell. Families who have performed this procedure report immediate changes, more peace in the home, fewer conflicts, better sleep quality, and a general feeling of protection and well-being. Josephine Rossi from Rome performed this ritual in March 1968. Following the instructions that Padre Pio had given to a friend of hers. Her home had become a battlefield. Her husband came home from work angry for no reason. The children fought constantly. She herself felt an inexplicable anguish when she was alone at home. After the blessed oil ritual, the transformation was immediate. On the first day, her husband arrived home from work calmer. On the second day, the children played together without fighting. Within a week, the entire house breathed a peace she hadn't felt in months. What was most impressive was that neighbors began to comment that they felt a different energy when they passed in front of her house. Some people said they felt a sweet scent of roses, which is a classic sign of Padre Pio's protection. Padre Pio said that generosity attracts multiplied blessings. If this message touched your heart, if you felt his presence while listening, there's a special way to reciprocate. YouTube has that golden button down there, the super thanks. It's not an ordinary donation, it's a sacred offering that transforms into protection for your family. Each super thanks helps bring these prayers and methods of Padre Pio to more homes that need protection. Padre Pio promised, "Those who help spread my devotion, I will protect from above." May he multiply in blessings what you decide to offer with faith. But there's still a secret that Padre Pio revealed only to people very close to him. The blessed oil ritual can be enhanced if you include blessed salt in the corners of the house. In each corner of the main rooms, place a pinch of blessed salt along with a drop of the blessed oil. This creates what he called complete angelic protection. Brother Albert documented that Padre Pio used this enhanced technique in cases where the entire family was suffering from coordinated spiritual attacks. The salt represents purification. The oil represents sacred anointing. Together, they form a barrier that no dark forces can penetrate. In June 1968, 3 months before Padre Pio's death, he revealed to Brother Joseph something he had never told before. During his bilocations, He had visited thousands of homes around the world. In all of them, he applied this protection of the blessed oil. Many families didn't even know they had received this spiritual visit. He said that he would continue protecting the homes even after physical death. Any family that performed the ritual with true faith would receive a spiritual visit from him to seal the protection. That's why so many people report smelling roses after completing the ritual. It's the sign of Padre Pio's presence, confirming that the protection has been established. Eleanor Romano, from Naples, performed the ritual in September 1968, a few weeks after Padre Pio's death. She followed every detail of the instructions that a friend had received directly from him. On the night after the ritual, she had a vivid dream where she saw Padre Pio walking through the rooms of her house, blessing each room. When she woke up, the whole house was perfumed with a sweet scent of roses that lasted for 3 days. Her neighbors asked what perfume she was using, but she knew it was the sign that Padre Pio had spiritually visited her house to seal the protection. The most impressive testimony came from a family in São Paulo, Brazil, in 1975. They had performed the blessed oil ritual, following instructions found in a book about Padre Pio. 3 days later, the family's youngest son, a mere 5 years old, said he'd seen a friar with wounds on his hands walking through the house during the night. The child described Padre Pio perfectly, even though he'd never seen a picture of him before. He said the friar had touched all the doors and windows of the house with his wounded hands, leaving a golden light in each place he touched. The family understood they'd received a spiritual visit from Padre Pio to confirm the home's protection. The transformation in homes protected by the blessed oil isn't just spiritual. Families report astonishing practical changes. Family relationships improve dramatically. Rebellious children become more respectful. Marriages in crisis find new harmony. It's as if God's peace literally descends upon that home. Padre Pio explained that when we spiritually protect our home, we're honoring God's commandment about the family. Our home becomes an extension of the church. Therefore, it deserves and receives special angelic protection. St. Michael the Archangel personally assumes the guardianship of that home. But remember when I said this ritual should be repeated. Padre Pio advised that the protection be renewed every 6 months, always on a Friday morning, not because the protection loses its effect, but because our faith needs constant renewal. The ritual becomes a moment of spiritual reconnection with angelic protection. Some families perform this ritual every month on the first Friday. Others prefer to do it only when they feel the house needs renewed protection. The important thing is to do it with true faith and follow exactly the steps Padre Pio taught. The complete prayer he taught to accompany the oil on the door locks and window latches included a specific invocation for each member of the Blessed Trinity and a direct order to the demons to stay away from that home. It was a prayer of only 43 words, but laden with extraordinary spiritual power. Brother Modestino, who was Padre Pio's secretary for 12 years, documented over 100 cases of families who received this protection through the blessed oil. One of the most impressive cases happened in 1965 with a family of merchants in Bari. The family's shop had been overtaken by such an oppressive atmosphere that customers left without buying anything. The owner, Signor Benedetto, was almost bankrupt. His wife had started having terrible nightmares every night. The children refused to be alone in the house. That's when a customer told him about a protection method Padre Pio had taught her sister. Signor Benedetto traveled to San Giovanni Rotondo on a rainy Thursday in November. Padre Pio received him without him needing to explain the reason for the visit. "I know why you're here," he said. "Your home and your shop need urgent protection. I'll teach you something I learned in a vision during a night of intense prayer." Padre Pio explained that some homes and businesses become vulnerable to spiritual attacks when there is envy or ill will from others. The blessed oil creates a barrier that prevents these negative energies from penetrating the environment. But there's a condition. It must be applied with absolute faith and fervent prayer. Signor Benedetto received not only oil from the lamps of the Blessed Sacrament, but also specific instructions for protecting a commercial establishment. In addition to the door locks and window latches, he should apply a drop of oil behind the main door, in the four corners of the establishment, and on each mirror or glass in the shop. On the first day after applying the protection, 3 former customers who had stopped frequenting the shop returned on the same day. One of them commented that he felt a different energy in the place. By the end of the week, sales had doubled. In a month, the shop was thriving again. But the most impressive thing was what happened at home. On the first night after the ritual, Signor Benedetto's wife had the best sleep in months. The children went back to playing normally around the house. The family atmosphere changed completely. It was as if a dark cloud had been removed from the home. Padre Pio taught that the protection of the blessed oil is not limited to cases of evident demonic manifestations. It also works against envy, ill will, the evil eye, and every form of negative energy that others may direct against our family. It's complete spiritual protection. In April 1967, an even more extraordinary situation occurred. A family in Lecce was being tormented by phenomena that began after the death of the maternal grandmother. Objects disappeared and reappeared in other places. Voices whispered the names of family members during the night. The youngest daughter, only 8 years old, began talking to herself, answering questions that no one had asked. Don Giuseppe, the family patriarch, was desperate. He had sought medical, psychological, and even spiritual help, but nothing worked. That's when a friar friend of Padre Pio visited Lecce and heard about the case. He immediately recognized the signs of a situation that required urgent spiritual intervention. The friar wrote to Padre Pio describing the situation. The response arrived in a week. It was a letter with detailed instructions and a small vial of oil from the lamps of the Blessed Sacrament. Along with it came a prayer handwritten by Padre Pio himself, something he rarely did. The prayer was different from the usual one. It included specific invocations for the liberation of tormented souls and a special petition for St. Michael the Archangel to escort any spirit still bound to the earth to eternal light. It was a prayer of simultaneous liberation and protection. Don Giuseppe followed every detail of the instructions. He began by applying the oil to the door locks and window latches at 6 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, as always. But this time, he also applied it to the frames of the photographs of the deceased grandmother and to all the objects that had belonged to her. The special prayer should be recited before each item. On the first night, something extraordinary happened. The 8-year-old daughter woke everyone up shouting that she had seen her grandmother in the hallway. But this time, the grandmother was smiling and waved to her before disappearing in a golden light. The child said that her grandmother had said, "Now I can go in peace. You are protected." From that night on, all the phenomena ceased completely. The family returned to normalcy. Don Giuseppe wrote to Padre Pio telling him the result. The response was brief but touching. Some spirits remain bound by excessive love for their family. The blessed oil, with the correct prayer, frees them for eternal light and protects the living at the same time. This case revealed an additional dimension of the protection of the blessed oil that few know. Beyond shielding against direct demonic attacks, Padre Pio's blessed oil also aids in the liberation of souls trapped between worlds, a protection operating across multiple spiritual dimensions. Padre Pio explained to Brother Albert that spiritual invasions come in different forms. The most common stem from negative energies sent by envious or malevolent individuals. The most severe are direct demonic assaults. But there's a third type, the presence of human spirits unable to find their way to the eternal light. Blessed oil, consecrated with the right prayers, addresses all three. Against negative energies, it creates a protective barrier. Against demonic attacks, it establishes angelic authority in the location. For trapped spirits, it offers a path to liberation, to the light. It's a complete and multidimensional spiritual safeguard. In March 1968, Padre Pio received a dramatic letter from a family in Palermo. The situation was so dire, he decided on bilocation to help personally. The mother wrote that her teenage daughter had begun exhibiting strange behavior after receiving an antique mirror from a distant aunt. The girl spent hours gazing into the mirror, conversing with someone only she could see. She refused food and water. She spoke in tongues no one recognized. Her parents were desperate, as doctors found nothing physically wrong. Padre Pio wrote back, instructing them to break the mirror immediately and burn the fragments. Then he sent blessed oil with very specific instructions. The ritual was to be performed for 3 consecutive days, at the same hour, with prayer and fasting by the entire family. But there was a special detail in this case. Padre Pio instructed that during the oil ritual, the whole family should recite the creed aloud 3 times. Afterward, they were to spend the entire night in prayer, taking turns so someone was always praying until dawn. On the 3rd night, around 3 in the morning, the daughter awoke screaming, but it wasn't a scream of fear. It was one of relief. She said she had seen a friar with wounds on his hands, ordering a dark shadow to leave her. The shadow fled through the window and vanished. The girl returned to normal instantaneously. The parents wrote to express their gratitude. They recounted that the following morning, neighbors commented on a brilliant light over their house throughout the night. Some claimed to have seen the silhouette of a friar praying in the yard. It was confirmation that Padre Pio had bilocated to assist personally. This testimony shows that Padre Pio's protection isn't limited to blessed oil. When necessary, he intervenes directly through spiritual bilocation, but the oil remains the primary method he left for families needing protection. Remember when I mentioned that some objects can carry negative energy? Padre Pio taught that antique mirrors, inherited jewelry from those who died in suffering, furniture from houses where tragedies occurred, these can be portals for spiritual invasions. Blessed oil neutralizes this energy when applied to the objects. The technique is simple. A drop of blessed oil on mirror frames, jewelry clasps, the hinges of old furniture, always accompanied by a protective prayer. Padre Pio guaranteed that any object treated this way becomes spiritually neutral, losing its ability to attract negative energies. But there's an even deeper secret to the protection Padre Pio taught. In December 1967, he revealed to Sister Pia, a nun who cared for the sick in San Giovanni Rotondo, that blessed oil can create a protective network extending beyond the house where it's applied. When an entire family embraces this devotion with true faith, the protection expands to workplaces, children's schools, even distant relatives. Sister Pia documented this revelation in her personal diary, found years after her death. According to her writings, Padre Pio explained that spiritual protection works like waves propagating from a center. The center is the home protected by the blessed oil. The waves are the family's fervent prayers. The greater the faith, the wider the protection's reach. This revelation explains why so many families report positive changes extending beyond their homes after performing the blessed oil ritual. Children struggling in school begin to excel. Parents facing work difficulties find unexpected solutions. It's Padre Pio's protection expanding to all areas of family life. In January 1968, an extraordinary case proved this theory. A family in Catania had applied the blessed oil protection, following Padre Pio's instructions meticulously. 3 days later, they received an unexpected call. Their eldest son, living in Rome and unaware of the ritual, had received a promotion after months of hardship. Their daughter, studying in Milan, called the same week, sharing that she'd secured a seemingly impossible scholarship. Their young grandson, who stayed with other grandparents during the week, stopped having nightmares that had lasted for months. These were clear signs that the protection had expanded to the entire family network. When this family wrote to Padre Pio recounting these events, he replied with a phrase that became famous among his devotees: "When a house becomes a sanctuary through blessed oil, the entire family tree is blessed. Protected roots make even the farthest branches flourish." This phenomenon of expanded protection has been documented in dozens of similar cases. Families who apply the blessed oil method with genuine faith report transformations far exceeding the physical boundaries of their homes. It's as if Padre Pio creates a field of spiritual protection, embracing all descendants and family extensions. Padre Pio also taught a special connection between blessed oil and the rosary. He advised that after applying protection to door locks and window latches, the family should pray a complete rosary before the Blessed Sacrament, if possible, or before an image of the Sacred Heart of Jesus. This prayer definitively sealed the protection established by the oil. The combination of blessed oil and the rosary creates what Padre Pio called a double shield. The oil establishes a physical barrier against spiritual invasions. The rosary invokes the maternal protection of Our Lady, Queen of the Angels, who holds special authority over St. Michael the Archangel. Together, they form a protection that no dark forces can penetrate. In February 1968, a farming family in Puglia was losing their entire harvest for inexplicable reasons. Plants were dying without apparent cause. The animals grew restless and fell ill. The entire family lived in an atmosphere of discouragement and constant discord. It was as if a curse had fallen upon the property. The patriarch Don Carmine heard about Padre Pio's methods of spiritual protection from a neighbor. He decided to travel to San Giovanni Rotondo as a last resort. Padre Pio received him on a blustery afternoon and immediately said, "Your land needs urgent blessing. Someone has placed a curse on your family." Padre Pio explained that rural properties are especially vulnerable to spiritual attacks. Because they are more exposed and isolated, envious people can direct negative energies against the land, the animals, and the crops. But there is a specific protection he had learned from St. Benedict, the patron saint of Europe. Don Carmine received not only oil from the lamps of the Blessed Sacrament, but also blessed salt specifically for rural protection. The instructions were different from urban cases. He should apply the oil to the door locks of the house, but also to the gates of the property, the stable doors, and to each corner of the planted fields. The blessed salt should be spread in the shape of a cross at the four corners of the property, always accompanied by fervent prayer. The ritual should be performed at dawn on a Friday, starting with the house and ending at the highest point of the property. Throughout the process, Don Carmine should recite the Creed and 3 Hail Marys at each blessed location. On the first day after the ritual, the animals visibly calmed down. In the first week, the plants began to show signs of recovery. Within a month, the entire property had been transformed. The harvest not only recovered, but was the best in years. Family harmony was completely restored. Don Carmine wrote to Padre Pio, thanking him and reporting a striking discovery. During the ritual, he had felt a malevolent presence leaving the property. It was as if something invisible that was sucking the life out of the place had been definitively expelled. The land became blessed and productive once more. This case shows that the protection of blessed oil is not limited to urban dwellings. It can be adapted for rural properties, commercial establishments, and any place where a Catholic family needs spiritual protection. The important thing is to follow the basic principles: true faith, fervent prayer, and careful application of the sacred oil. Padre Pio also revealed that there is a special day of the year when the protection of the blessed oil is maximized. It is on September 23rd, the feast day of St. Pio of Pietrelcina. Families who apply the protection on this date receive a special blessing that lasts throughout the following year. The explanation is simple. On the feast day of a saint, their intercession with God becomes more powerful. It's as if the heavens open in a special way to answer the requests made through that specific intercession. Therefore, applying the protection of the blessed oil on September 23rd is a guarantee of more intense and lasting protection. Thousands of families around the world have adopted this practice. Every year, on September 23rd, they renew the protection of their homes with the blessed oil. They make this day a family celebration of the renewal of faith and spiritual protection. It's a custom that has spread organically among the devotees of St. Pio. But Padre Pio warned that the protection only works as long as the family maintains an active spiritual life. A house protected by blessed oil where the residents stop praying, attending Mass, living the Catholic precepts, gradually loses its protection. The spiritual barrier weakens when faith weakens. That's why he always insisted blessed oil is not a magic charm. It is a sacrament that requires an active sacramental life from the family, regular confession, fervent communion, daily prayer, reading the scriptures, works of charity. All this strengthens the protection established by the sacred oil. A house truly protected by the devotion of St. Pio becomes a small family monastery, a place where the Catholic faith is intensely lived, where Christian charity is practiced, where holiness is constantly sought. It is this atmosphere of living faith that keeps the angelic protection established by the blessed oil active. This is the complete legacy that St. Pio of Pietrelcina left us on the spiritual protection of the home. Not just a ritual, but an authentic Catholic lifestyle. A way to transform our home into a true domestic sanctuary where God is honored, where angels dwell, where our family grows in faith and love. In his last months of life, Padre Pio began teaching this prayer to anyone who asked for protection for their home. He said that difficult times were coming, and Catholic families would need this protection more than ever. It was as if he knew that his mission included leaving this legacy of spiritual protection. Today, decades after his death and years after his canonization, thousands of families around the world continue to use the method of blessed oil that St. Pio of Pietrelcina revealed. Testimonials of transformation and protection continue to arrive from all continents. The ritual is simple, but the results are extraordinary. Homes protected by Padre Pio's blessed oil become true family sanctuaries. Places where God's presence is felt in a special way. Homes where the family grows in faith and unity. If your family is experiencing inexplicable difficulties, if you feel negative energies in your home, if you need special spiritual protection, try this method that St. Pio left us. Do it with faith. Follow each step exactly as he taught, and prepare to see your home transformed into a true family sanctuary. The protection of St. Pio of Pietrelcina did not end with his death. It remains available to every family that seeks this grace with a sincere heart. The blessed oil on the locks is more than a ritual. It is a spiritual key that opens the doors of your home to permanent angelic protection. Write Saint Pio, protect my family in the comments and see how many people are seeking the same spiritual protection. What sign of Padre Pio's presence have you already noticed in your home?